Hello my viewers. Before I get started, I want to do a shout out to Country Comes to Town. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to my wife, Dearest Becky. In case if some of you have not seen her channel yet, check it out, would you please? And another thing, before I forget, if you'd like to send me a message, it's much better if you just private message me. Of course, you know, you can leave comments like you usually do on my videos. That's really very nice, and I usually get back to you on that as well. But if you have a question that you don't want the world to see you ask me, it's best to private message me. Also, I've noticed I do get a lot of questions of people asking me on my main channel page. If you'd like for me to respond to your questions, please private message me, because it's a lot easier for me to reply. A lot of times, I mean, days will go by and without that I won't even look at those comments that people post on my main channel. Plus, I'm not really sure about where you want me to post the answer to your questions. So, like I said, it's much better for me if you just private message me. Okay, now and on with the show. I have here 3 different thermal expansion valves. Each one of them are basically the same type. The biggest difference is the size. This one right here is actually for a 30-ton air conditioning system. Okay, this is the largest one that I have right here. Okay, the next size up that I have to show you is for an 11-ton air conditioning system. Okay, and the smallest one I have here is actually for a 4-ton air conditioning system. Now, like I said, they're all about the same. Okay, the biggest difference here is with the size, the capacity, the amount of BTUs of cooling or heating that it will provide. For example, let's look at the outside of this 4-ton right now. Okay, we have the power head, that's this thing right here on the top, and there's some information that's printed directly on the power head that is usually pretty pertinent anytime you need to replace it. Okay, this one right here is telling you that, of course, it's for a 4-ton. Okay, and GA means for air conditioning. Now, also it tells you that it's for R22 or R407C. Those 2 refrigerants will work with this power head. On this power head, you see, is this bulb. This bulb gets strapped to the suction line. This particular thermal expansion valve is externally equalized. That's what this tubing right here is. Okay, this tube will this capped right now with a cap, just to keep crud out of it, but this tube will get connected to a tube which is connected to the suction line, and it's like this for any externally equalized expansion valve. The other thing here we have is this side is where the refrigerant will go in to the expansion valve, and then this side is where the refrigerant will come out and go into the evaporator right here. And of course these are capped right now as well to keep trash out or moisture, whatever. And a lot of times, like these are Sporlan valves, by the way, that I'm showing you. That's the brand name. they'll show you where the in is. It'll say in, and of course they usually won't say out, but I mean, if you can't figure out that if this says in, that this should be out, then I mean, I'll just let it go at that. Now, of course, let's take a look at this larger thermal expansion valve. Naturally, this one is for a 30-ton air conditioning system. This as well is externally equalized. So this is where copper tubing going to the suction line would actually be brazed in place. You see, this particular expansion valve is a sweat type where you have to braze it in. If you have to braze this expansion valve in, you're much better off just to tear it apart like I'm going to do right now, rather than like what they say here. Let me show you something. Right here in the instructions it says, caution, when soldering or brazing valve, wrap with wet cloth to protect internal parts. Okay? What I like to do though, instead of wrapping it, I always would much prefer to just take it apart. It's not that big of a deal, and you know, that way too you don't have to worry about any problems. Now this one, see, this power head, by the way, is filled with a refrigerant that's different than the refrigerant that this particular expansion valve is rated for. And the refrigerant is inside of this power head, and it goes all the way into this bulb. Okay, like I said before, the bulb gets strapped to the suction line. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let me go ahead and undo. Well, first I'll undo the cap from around the stem. Okay, and then I'll remove this part, stem. Okay, and it's a good idea to kind of remember how this goes back together again when you do take it apart. Okay, now right here, we'll set this part down, the body. That's what this is. This is a body. And here we have some parts with nylon seals that would become damaged if they were to become overly heated. So that's another reason why it's a good idea to actually just take it apart when you have to braze the body in place. Also inside of here there's a spring. Okay, and on this other side there's a stem that it's an adjusting stem so that you can make adjustments to the flow of refrigerant that goes through the expansion valve. Next we'll look at the body, and in the body still has a couple more parts on the inside here that we'll remove. Okay, what you have here is a pin. I'll try to take it out here from come on, must be stubborn. There it goes. Okay, now this pin of course has a spring right here, and now I think, let's see, we have all the parts out of this expansion valve, and it can pretty much safely be brazed in place. But you know what? It's still a good idea to wrap it. Either way, wrap it in with a wet cloth or some sort of heat sink. So now with this pin, okay, that actually goes in here, okay, which I'll put back now. Well, first let's look at this. Now this pin has a spring on it, see, so that the pin can adjust the flow of refrigerant Alright, we'll go ahead and put this pin back inside, and sometimes they can be fun to, put back together again, especially if you have to do this upside down. It's even more fun. It's not nearly as much fun just like this, but if you had to do it like this, it's loads of fun, and especially in a cramped area, like underneath of a chiller or something. Now I have the pin in there, and the next item that would go back in there, of course, would be this part right here with the nylon seals. Goes right in there like that, okay? Because you see that pin, I'll show you. See, when I press on this, see, that pin, okay, will go up and down. Also, we have a spring here that fits right in there, and this is the stem. So we'll put all this back together. See, the reality is, though, it's actually a lot easier to put everything together here first, and then you can it's much easier just to put it back together again like this. Okay, and then once you see, and here's the pin right here. The way this works is that this pin will move up and down according to what's going on in with this power head, because the refrigerant inside this power head will make this part move up and down according to the temperature that it's picking up from the suction line. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and put the power head back on. Okay, now what I like to do, though, just to not damage the inside of this power head, is I'll back off this stem here, and that will allow me to put the power head back on much better and tighter, and that way the pin doesn't scratch up the brass inside of the power head. Once I have the power head tight, then I can tighten the stem onto the body. Also, after I think that I have the expansion valve adjusted the way I need it, according to the amount of superheat that's going across the evaporator, then I can put the cap on and tighten that. Alright, and here we go. It's all back together again.